Elmer Terry Brunsman. I was in Lima, Peru from 1965 to 67. It was an educational television project. I worked with teachers helping them to make programs for the barriadas, the shanty towns around Lima.
Great. My name is Andrew Hoffman. I was in Peru from 1966 to 1968. I worked in a boys' reformatory. And in this boys' reformatory, there was a little boy who was an orphan, actually, and nobody thought he could hear until one day we dropped some money on the ground and he went right for it. So we knew exactly what his deafness was about. But it was just one of the stories of the boys who served in who were in this boys' reformatory.
My name is Roger Chapin. I served in Peru from the years of 1966 to 1968 and spent most of my time in Huaraz working in community development.
Okay, do you have any
It was sort of interesting. I ended up working with a German engineer who was sort of like a Peace Corps from Germany, and one of the highlights of my memories is spending my birthday party, or going on my birthday to a hotel, the only nice hotel in the area, which was later largely catered to Germans from Lima. And it turns out my birthday is on Adolf Hitler's birthday. And once that was mentioned, the whole atmosphere changed. A room full of strangers became, whoa, hey, yeah, all the memories of life during World War II. And they started buying drinks and singing songs. And I started wondering, who are these people? So yeah, that was my memory of serving in Peru. So
I'm Shar McLaughlin, and I was in Huancayo, Peru, from about September 1966 until the end of April of 1969.
Okay, how did you happen to join the Peace Corps?
In the produce, we had fresh tomatoes all year round, potatoes, all of the things that are developed by the Incas down there that we take for granted in the rest of the world nowadays came from Peru. 50 varieties of potatoes. You know, when I came to North Dakota, you can buy one from Idaho. Well, they've gotten a little better. Maybe there's 3 or 4 different varieties. But there's all of our potatoes, all of our tomatoes, all of your squash, all of your corn, all of your beans, all of your vanilla, your chocolate, your peppers, all came from developed by the ancestors, the Incas in Peru. The cheese we had to get from the Germans. There was a lot of German there were a couple of them not real close by, but there was one in the Montero Valley, about 40 minutes away by bus. And they were probably a German community from the 1700s, 18th century. Yeah, people keep thinking all these German colonies that are in Chile and Argentina and all over in Latin America came because of World War II. Most of them were there several hundred years before that. They grew, and a lot of them were very interesting and completely isolated from the outside world, and their Germans stayed German and the French stayed French, and they raised their dairy animals and did their own things their own way for hundreds of years, and were really like the Mennonites a lot in this country, which my mother's family is from. I went out to those communities for about a year, and then as I was saying, I taught the high school for a while. And I think one of the things that I had a 4-H club that I had a co-leader with, and I think that few of the things we really did change in a couple people's lives. And one was the 18-year-old girl that had gone down to Lima to go to dental school and got sick and came home and was doing nothing and lived next door to us in the house and basically learned how to do they call it demonstration de método, demonstration de método, how you do a food cooking demonstration. So I had taught her how to do it with the visual aids and everything, and we developed a recipe. Panettone was a Christmas bread like the Italian one, but we made one with potatoes, which is classic Peruvian. And she actually, after I returned, won a national competition on this stuff and got a scholarship for 4 years to go to the University of Mexico in home economics so she could go back and teach. I thought, okay, the whole thing about the Peace Corps is you don't want to build a bridge to nowhere. You want to teach people how to keep doing things themselves. You want to pass it on. Well, I didn't build any roads or bridges. I did give some people some skills to go back and keep carrying on to teach some of the things I was.
Pretty special student.
Where we were, on the equator at 10,000 feet, the difference between the longest day and the shortest day was 10 minutes. I mean, the sun rose at 6 and set at 6, rose at 6 and set at 6. And when you're on the equator, it's dark and it's cold and it's hot and the sun's up, and you walk 2 feet over in the shade and you need to put a sweater or a jacket on. You walk 2 feet over and stand in the sun, be careful you're going to burn because it's very thin air, and you're hot. That's why all the Peruvian women wear hats, among other reasons. The style is for a reason.
The country where they knit the hats, or is that a different?
No, they I don't know about knitting them, but everyone, small community has their own distinctive. The women all had a distinctive hat that they wore, and you could tell where they were from at that time by the hat they wore. And they were usually a straw type of thing, painted white or with a whitewash on it with a black band of some kind. All different shapes and styles, but everybody in each community had their own unique hat. And the women, and they wore yikia and the skirts.
John Platt. I was in Peru from 1967 to 1970. I was originally stationed in Cajamarca, Northern Andes, where I met my wife.
Is your wife?
This is my wife.
Come into the picture.
Doris.
Come into the picture.
My wife Doris from Cajamarca, Peru. I was involved in training teachers at the teacher college level, science, physics and mathematics, and ended up staying in Peru 11 years, getting married and having 2 kids.
I'm Paul Killebrew. I served in the Peace Corps in Peru, in the northern coast, Chiclayo, with my wife, Joyce. It was our honeymoon, and we did 2 years there, teaching at a normal school, 1968 to 1970.
My name is Joyce Killebrew. I was in Chiclayo, Peru from 1968 to 1970, and I taught in La Escuela Normal Sagrado Corazón de Jesús. And I taught methods of teaching math to elementary school teachers, and I also taught in-service courses to teachers in Chiclayo and the surrounding areas.
Great.
Okay, my name is Bob Tagenhorst. I was in Peru from 1969 to 1972. The major event during that time period was an earthquake in May of 1970 where 70,000 people were killed. 2 members of my group were killed. I happened to be in Lima, and as it happened, I noticed that people were out in the street kneeling and praying, and I was out in the street looking up watching for objects to fall, and if objects were starting to fall, I would simply avoid them. It was an interesting cultural experience because the Peruvians were essentially looking to God to save them. I was looking to my fast feet to save me. And it worked. Obviously, it's still here. And I entered a period of relief, recovery, and reform, and built something like 10 schools, of which, 4 still exist. And I've been back 7 times in the last 6 years, and we have a corporation formed that are supporting
that we're supporting the work that we did initially with the schools in terms of providing the small things like projects, running water, technology, computers, and that sort of thing.
It's Chris Fault. I live in San Antonio, Texas. I served in Peru, Tacna, from 70 to 72.
Hi, my name is Ryan Schnauzer, and I was a volunteer in Peru from 2008 to 2010, water and sanitation, so I was in the Department of Buda.
Fantastic.
Frida Von Qualen, and I worked in Peru from 2008 until the end of 2011, and from 2008 till 2010 I was in Santiago, Ica, and from 2010 to 2011 in Lima, the capital city.
Okay.
Two main things come to mind. One was living with my host family was just an incredible joy. They were the sweetest couple I've ever met in my life, like grandparents really. And we would just spend our evenings after dinner, all hang out in the dining room, and we'd watch whatever soap opera was on that night and make little jokes about how much makeup the women had on and everything, and just kind of giggle at the ridiculousness, but also know we were all enjoying the show just a little bit. The other thing I always think of during my service was I worked with two people from my municipality that were incredibly devoted to their communities. They'd work full days at the municipality, and then 5 o'clock we'd head out to smaller communities to do education sessions, and without a doubt they'd be there on time, they'd be ready to work, and we'd work an extra 3 hours, and if I was feeling lazy and not doing something, they were what kept me going because they were devoted to their community, and that was cool. That was very cool.
My name is Heather Boomer. I served in Peru from 2010 to 2011, and I lived in a town called Santo Toribio, which is in the Department of Ancash, closest to the city of Caraz. Something really cool that I did, I was a youth development volunteer, and I worked in all the schools within my district. So the farthest school that I went to, I actually would get to ride a horse and go 3 hours away on horseback. I only went once a month. It was a one-room schoolhouse with about 12 students, and I would go with the medical staff from my health post, and we would go together up to this town, and I learned to speak a little Quechua from them.
Very good.